Hi there, this is the Solitary Ronin from Solitary Ronin Films, and welcome to another 10 films that should get a Blu-ray release, preferably on Criterion, Eureka Masters of Cinema or Arrow, but we would take any Blu-ray release. This is in no order, and again it's just another 10 films that I think should get a nice Blu-ray transfer. Again, please leave comments below of any 10 films that you think should get a Blu-ray transfer, and let us start. So the first one is from Thailand by the Pang brothers. I think this is their debut film, and it is Bangkok Dangerous. This is the story of a mute hitman, and it's beautifully shot. Yes, there's familiar hitman tropes in it, but it's just done so well, and obviously we haven't seen a mute hitman. This was remade by the Pang brothers again, with Nicolas Cage for the English language version, and of course that version is on about 4 different Blu-ray editions, but the original doesn't still have a Blu-ray release. That's kind of one of the many things I don't like about remakes, is the fact that the remake, especially the English language remake, then becomes like the default version, or the newer remake becomes the default version. So for example, the Taken of Pelham 1, 2, 3, every time you see the Taken of Pelham 1, 2, 3 in the television you get excited, but then you realise it's actually the remake with Denzel Washington and John Travolta, which nobody would be excited about. And I just think it's quite annoying when the remake, which in general is always inferior to the original, that then kind of becomes the default version, especially if the film is foreign, or especially if the film is black and white, and it's really quite annoying. Anyway, rant over. Bangkok Dangerous. So the second one is Coupe de Ville. For a while you couldn't even get this in DVD, so I was very happy to actually find it in DVD. And this is just a lovely little road movie set in the 50s with Daniel Stern and Alan Arkin. And this is the story of 3 brothers who just fight all the time, who get tasked the job of bringing a car across country to Florida to their parents on the occasion of their anniversary. So it's your typical squabbling boys fighting and getting into hilarious hijinks and scrapes, but it's just done so well. It has a fantastic Alan Arkin performance, and you can't get enough Alan Arkin performances. It's got a great 50s soundtrack, and there's wonderful discussions about what the song Louie Louie means, from like a sex song to a sea shanty to many other things. It's just a great wee film. It's a feel-good film. It's not overplayed or overdone, and it's got a very nice car in it. So, Coupe de Ville. So another film that could do with a nice Blu-ray release is The Milagro Beanfield War by Robert Redford. Personally, this is probably my second favourite Robert Redford film, Quiz Show being number 1. And it's just a great wee film about farmers being exploited in their land, attempting to be taken off them by nasty developers. Not being biased, but it's got a fantastic Christopher Walken performance. I will be doing a top 10 Christopher Walken films at some point, and he just, as usual, gives a great turn as a troubleshooter brought in. Again, it's just a lovely film, shot beautifully, Daniel Stern, John Hurd. It's just a great wee film, and it really deserves an Arrow or a Eureka or Criterion release. Langro Beanfield War. And it's got a great title as well. Now this is a heavyweight. It's Come and See. Ellen Klimoff's just jaw-droppingly horrific war film, which war films should be, strangely enough. For people who are just used to Hollywood war films, and war films who want their cake and eat it, as far as, oh yes, war's a terrible thing and it's horrible, but we also kind of like heroics, and we kind of like explosions, and we kind of like guns, but war's terrible. That's kind of, in general, what Hollywood war films are like. This is not a Hollywood war film. This is about villages that were destroyed in Belarus during World War II by the Germans. There is a statistic that comes up at the end about how many villages were just destroyed and burned to the ground. This is not an easy watch, but war films shouldn't be an easy watch. If you make a war film that's wonderfully entertaining, then you're missing the point. To me, this is the greatest war film ever made. There are no heroes in it. There's just horror. There's set pieces that you'll never forget. There's images in it you'll never forget. It's just the story of a boy who becomes involved in the militia fighting the Germans in the countryside, and there's just amazing images in it. I'm not going to spoil things for people, but it's a film that people really need to come and see, if you'll pardon the pun. Also, Come and See is a reference to Revelations, and it's a reference to hell, and that's probably a good description of it. I know there's rumours that it's coming to Criterion at some point, which would just be amazing. It's certainly going to be in my top 10 films that are great films, but are a really hard watch. And there are times where art and films particularly need to be a hard watch. Again, if you're making a war film and it's thoroughly enjoyable, then there's something wrong. So even though the Germans, you could argue, are maybe a little bit cartoonish in this, the Russians are seen to also do terrible things. So it's just a fantastic film in the sense it'd be too easy just to take sides and say, oh yeah, the Germans are the bad guys, but the Russians are seen doing some terrible things as well. Yeah, it's pretty much nobody comes out of it cleanly, as in the case with war in general, and it's just a phenomenal film. But again, it might be hard to take for people who are used to Hollywood war films, but that doesn't make it any less magnificent. You'll see lots of reviews on Amazon of it, where it'll either get 5 stars or it will get 1 or 2 stars, and you can just pretty much tell it's really the people's sensibilities or their expectations of what a war film is that actually judge those ratings. Because for me it's a 5-star film. It's a masterpiece. It's a hard watch, but that doesn't take anything away from the fact that it's a masterpiece. So if that got a Criterion Blu-ray release, that would be absolutely awesome. This is actually quite a good set. It's a really nice print, and it does have some interviews that are worth checking out. It is getting harder and harder to track down a copy, but if you've never seen it before, please try and track it down, because it's a masterpiece. And I know the word masterpiece is kind of thrown about a lot by us film lovers, but this is definitely one that you can call a masterpiece and nobody would really argue with you. So come and see. Please, please, please come to Bluray and see. I apologise for the terrible puns. So the next one is a film that I only saw recently, and it's The Man Who Laughs with Conrad Veidt, and this is a silent film about a boy who is given a eternal smile. He's born into the carnival, so they did this to boys in the carnival, and it just follows him as he falls in love with a blind girl who of course can't see him, and there's a murder plot, and as silent films go, it's actually very, very good, and Conrad Veidt gives a great performance. This to me would be an ideal release for Eureka, because one of the things that maybe Eureka Masters of Cinema does a little bit better than Criterion is their silent film releases. They do a lot more silent film releases than Criterion, and they do a really good job with them. Some of the prints for M and Nosferatu and The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari are just beautiful. So I do think The Man Who Laughs deserves more exposure, and as you can see by this disc, there may have been an influence on a certain DC comic character, villain, but obviously you can make up your own mind whether a permanent grin and slick back hair resembles anybody. I don't know, but that's The Man Who Laughs, a really good silent film that deserves a Blu-ray release. The next one is Save the Tiger with Jack Lemmon. Again, a film that for years I'd never actually seen, and this is one of Jack Lemmon's greatest performances, and that's saying something. Powerhouse Indicator are releasing Missing at the end of August in the UK on Blu-ray, so surely the next one they have to release is Save the Tiger, about a owner of a fashion factory who's at the end of his rope as far as with debt and things, and then he decides to do something about it. Again, it's one of those classic late 70s films about the state of America and Jack Lemmon desperately trying to find his place in the world, trying to recapture his youth, troubled with flashbacks from the war. It's just a fantastic film. Again, not a feel-good film, but certainly for Jack Lemmon fans it's an essential watch, and it really deserves a Blu-ray release. So the next one is one of my personal favourites. It's The Shop Around the Corner by Ernst Lubitsch with Jimmy Stewart. This was remade as You've Got Mail with Meg Ryan and Tom Hanks, but again, watch the original. Obviously there's no emails involved in this, it's letters, Lonely Heart letters. Again, it's just that light Lubitsch touch. It's just an absolute classic. Again, with Criterion releasing It Happened One Night and The Philadelphia Story, you really feel it's about time that somebody got their hands on The Shop Around the Corner. It's just a lovely film, one of Lubitsch's best, and that's saying a lot. So The Shop Around the Corner. I know I have been going on a little bit, but the next one is Local Hero the one Bill Forsyth film that isn't available on Blu-ray. Now, I don't know whether it's rights issues. I think this was a Channel 4 production, maybe. It does have a Universal on it, but I don't know whether there must be obviously some rights issues, because That Sinking Feeling in Gregory's Girl and Comfort and Joy are all on Blu-ray, but Local Hero isn't. And it's a beautiful film with Peter Riegert. Burt Lancaster gives it an awesome performance, and Fulton Mackay is wonderful as well. And this is kind of the film that Northern Exposure was loosely based on, as far as an outsider coming to a kind of isolated village with their little peculiarities. This one's in Scotland rather than Alaska. It's got a beautiful Mark Knopfler score, and it's just a lovely, lovely film, and it really deserves a Blu-ray release. Obviously, with all these films, if you know of a Blu-ray release, then please let me know in the comments below, because that would be really helpful. So the second last one is a film that I saw a long time ago and couldn't even get it in DVD, and then recently I managed to find it on DVD. And this film is called Minbo by Itami, and it's a light-hearted comedy about a woman who's employed by a hotel to get rid of Yakuza, who are just trying to extort money from hotels. This is a really light, funny film, but sadly the director was actually stabbed to death by Yakuza sometime after the film was released. So this film literally cost an artist his life, which is obviously tragic for such a kind of light-hearted film. Again, it's also known as Minbo no Onna, or Tax Extortion Woman, which sounds like a bizarre superhero. But it's a lovely film. I'm glad I actually found it in DVD after all these years. But a Blu-ray release, again maybe by Arrow, would be fantastic. I mean, again, it's not a masterpiece or anything, but it's just a really nice film and an important film, because at the end of the day it did cost the maker his life. Not to depress anybody, but that's Minbo. So the last one of the 10 more films that should really get a Blu-ray release by one of the labels is Passion Fish by John Sayles. Now, if you've watched my top 10 John Sayles films, I hope you have, this was my number 1. It's just a brilliant film. As much as I love Ingmar Bergman, and it's fantastic that Criterion are going to release a 39 film box set of Bergman in November, if Criterion released a John Sayles box set, I don't really think there's any price I wouldn't pay to get a Blu-ray box set of his films. John Sayles means so much to me. His films mean so much to me. His writing, his understanding of human behaviour, and the point that his films all have about community. And I mean, some people might say he's, got socialist leanings, as if that's a bad thing for everybody to actually get on and live together. That's not much of a radical thought, is it? This is one of his masterpieces. Again, the synopsis doesn't sound very sexy or anything. A soap opera actress, played by Mary McDonnell, is paralysed in a car accident, and Alfred Woodard is the eventual carer that she actually puts up with. It's filled with great comedy. It's filled with heartwarming moments, but again, it's never sentimental because sales just doesn't write that way. It's full of great characters. David Strathairn turns up as a guy who Mary McDonnell's character had a crush with in high school. It's just, I think this was shot by Roger Deakins, maybe? It was, because Roger Deakins, before he shot a lot of films with the Coen brothers, shot a few for John Sayles. So it looks absolutely beautiful. It sounds absolutely beautiful. Mason Daring with another great soundtrack. And again, because of John Sayles' writing, you want to follow these characters for the next 10 years of their lives. So if there's a director's cut that runs about 10 hours or 12 hours, then nobody would complain. Yeah, Passion Fish, if you haven't seen it, please do watch it and expose yourself to some more John Sayles films, because in my opinion he's the best director in the world at the moment, and has been since Shizlovsky sadly passed. A Shizlovsky top 10 will be coming relatively soon, as a side note. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and please, if you have suggestions of any more films that should really get a Blu-ray release, preferably by Criterion, Arrow or Eureka Masters of Cinema, please let me know in the comments below. Leave a like if you liked this video, and we will see you again. This is the Solitary Ronin saying goodbye.